Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing a subject that I've been thinking about ever since I went back and reread the manga again recently for a video about the Cell Saga. And that would have to revolve around one of the primary villains of the Cell Saga, who eventually becomes a heroic character in the story. And that would have to be Android 18, and more specifically, the question of, did Android 18 actually have more potential than Android 17 when they were originally augmented by Dr. Gero? And if so, did this change over time because the fact that Dr. Gero actually suppressed her and her power overall? Well, I'm going to be getting into that in this video, bringing up the manga and some in-universe evidence, and then you guys can decide for yourself. But let's get into that right now. But before I begin, I just wanted to let you all know that I actually have an Instagram, which is at Laughingstock Media. If you're interested in following me on here and checking out some exclusive posts, you can find it down below in the description, or again at that handle at Laughingstock Media. Okay, so let's get back into the video. Okay, so this begins with a particular page from the manga from Dragon Ball Z chapter 173 of that section of the Dragon Ball manga. And of course, this is the Android ABCs, or the history of Dr. Gero's androids, or Gero for my subtitle fans out there. All androids after android number 8 were built to defeat the destroyer of the Red Ribbon Army, Son Goku. And I see Goku's right here saying, this is one of those little things about the manga that's so great that we never really get to see in the anime because of the format that Toriyama drew. We have these little chibi versions of the characters and a whole explanation in depth of kind of their history. So all the androids, numbers 1 through 7, had various problems, and as a result, Dr. Gero viewed them and most of his androids as being failures. Android 8, of course, Hachan, we were introduced to in the original Dragon Ball and the Red Ribbon Army saga. Gero made him, and Goku befriended him, and he helped to undo the Red Ribbon Army as a result. 15 through 9, or 9 through 15 rather, all of them had one problem or another, but 13, 14, 50 were pretty close to the final android form. Of course, 13, 14, 15 would be the primary villains of the Super Android 13 movie. Android 16, of course. For some reason, Dr. Gero said 16 was a failure. Its personality was probably the major problem, kind of just like Android 8. But there were other flaws too, and he was a totally constructed one. This led to Android 17 and 18. So let's take a look at what it says right here. For 17, of course, too much attention was placed on its power capabilities, so it refused to take orders, and thus was a failure. He's a cyborg, whereas this is fully constructed type for 16, most of the other androids, with Dr. Gero, of course, being a cyborg, and of course you can make an argument for Hachan as well. Now, with regard to Android 18, what's it say right here underneath? 18, although the power was suppressed compared to 17, it also did not follow orders, and thus was determined to be a failure. 19, of course, was a success according to Gero because he followed every single order for number 20 and converted him into an android from Gero into number 20. And Gero himself, naturally, he would think that he was a success, along with Cell, who previously Dr. Gero tried to use biotechnology to create an android, but due to time constraints, he programmed a computer, his supercomputer, to finish the experiment. It was created by combining the genes of Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza's father, and a number of other life forms. But going back to 18, it's really interesting to take a look at both of them. Where 17, too much attention was placed on its power capabilities, and so it refused to take orders, probably because he was way more powerful than Gero. That's why he needed the shutdown device. And then 18, for example, its power was suppressed compared to 17. So why was 18's power suppressed? In order to make her obey orders far more than 17 would have, or some of these other androids. But with that being said, what was Android 18's original power then? Was it equal to 17, or perhaps was it even greater than 17? Well, with that being said, there are a number of different things when it comes to their personalities that could imply 18 was originally the alpha of the two, the one really wearing the pants in this, a brother-sister relationship, and also the one who might have been more powerful than her brother overall. So let's take a look at some of those examples. So of course, when Android 1718 were originally awoken by Dr. Gero, he was somebody who did not want to awaken them because the fact that they had disobeyed him in the past. As we could see right here, he hoped he fixed the problem, so he had put them under again in order to resolve whichever issue they were encountering at the time, which was, of course, that they weren't obeying him. So when he wakens them up, of course, they still don't really obey him. They're still not really changed in that regard, but they see that he has the remote shutdown device, and that leads to him waking 18 up. She sees the same thing. She's very nice to him. And then he says right here, interestingly enough, I must say I'm relieved by your tone. I originally devoted too much of your programming to the infinite energy reactor, so I couldn't control you very well. You wouldn't even listen to my orders before. I'll have you activated momentarily. Son Goku's friends will be here soon. Kill them all, do you understand? So of course, at this point they're playing along, but they still were not, of course, really under his control. We see that 17 steals the remote. And then, of course, what ends up happening is that they end up overcoming Dr. Gero by killing him. 18 is doing whatever she wants to do. She's going to wake up 16. But, of course, 17's the one to kill Dr. Gero. However, this is really the most ruthless thing that we see this main timeline version of 17 do. He does even more ruthless things in the future, like killing civilians constantly and doing a number of other things, but 18 is really the one who seems to revel the most in all of this when it comes down to it. Like, for example, when we actually see her taking on Vegeta, she's the first one to step up to fight the strongest warrior at the time on the Earth, with that being Super Saiyan Vegeta, who's more powerful than Goku at this point. And over time, she's playing with him, she's toying with him. And even though his power isn't vastly below hers in his full strength as a Super Saiyan, as far as we can tell, the fact of the matter is that she still has the advantage because of her infinite energy, eventually wears him down, and then just starts to get straight up brutal against him, breaking his arm with this kick as we see. And then not only that, but what ends up continuing to happen is that 17 steps in and knocks these guys out. He just puts them down with one shot each. He isn't really doing something which is very malicious in terms of what he's doing. But 18, on the other hand, when she fights, she's more torturing of her enemies, of her prey, so to speak, as she, after we see this awesome scene of 17 punching Piccolo like his chest is made of rubber, we see that Vegeta jumps up to try and attack her. 18, once again, she's actually going to make sure that Vegeta stays down by breaking his other arm, as we see. And he's screaming in agony right here and actually passes out. I mean, look at his arm. You're not supposed to bend that way. It actually passes out entirely because of this. So 18, as we see, in terms of the fights themselves, tends to be the more brutal of the two when it comes to their fighting. The only time we really see some of her, more human side flare up tends to come down with how she's talking to her brother 17 with the other android 16, the fully component mechanical one, and of course when she gives Krillin a little smackaroo right here, which makes it so that he is so overwhelmed by her beauty and the fact that she would actually kiss him that he eventually doesn't kill her when he has the chance, even though he probably should have. But with that being said, another thing is to look at 17's personality as well. 17 wants to just play around, let Goku come to them, go on a mission to kind of like go on a road trip and find them. Whereas 18, she doesn't want to. She wants to get right there. She wants to kill Goku immediately. And instead, 17's the one who wants to play around. And this is something that we see continue or really originate in the future Trunks timeline. Because what actually happens here? While 17 and 18 are wiping out the different civilians in this particular area here, however, what ends up happening is that 18 is the one who wants to again wipe out even more of the Earthlings because the fact that she is more brutal and vicious when it comes to them. She's saying, enough 17, there aren't many more humans here, let's go somewhere else, there must be a lot of them hiding up north. She wants to wipe them out. Whereas 17, he wants to have fun, he wants to stretch things out. 18, she doesn't have any chill whatsoever. Look at this guy who's in the rubble behind her. She just kills him mid-conversation because she just hates humans so much at this point. And she doesn't really want to have the same kind of fun as 17. Instead, she'd rather just run humans over with cars, as she could see right here, which is pretty messed up to say the least. But, Krillin has great taste in women, obviously. At this point, 17 gets attacked, and 18's first reaction is to laugh about it. Not just that, but what ends up happening is that, she witnesses the fight that's about to take place between 17 and Gohan. And what we see here, 17 goes to fight and take out Gohan, and, he's rightfully annoyed by everything that happened. 18, she's reveling in this. She's laughing, she's smiling with this evil, vindictive smile on her face. So again, when it comes to her personality, she really seems to be the more ruthless and the vicious of the two out of the two androids. She really seems to be more of the alpha female compared to 17 in this case. And again, it could be because the fact that she either had the exact same amount of power as him, or very possibly had even greater potential after Dr. Gero suppressed her. Again, Dr. Gero didn't go out of his way to suppress 17 when you think that maybe he could have, or realistically should have if he did the same thing with 18, but he did suppress her. No other android on this list is stated to have been suppressed from their initial power other than Android 18. So it's entirely possible to say that 18 was the most powerful, maybe out of all of them in terms of her potential, aside from Cell, because of his the fact that he's an amalgam of all of these, than Android 17 and everyone else. And that could very well be because she actually had greater potential than 17 when she was first made. And on the subject of Cell, another thing worth noting is just how powerful he becomes after he absorbs Android 18 into his body, becoming perfect, to where he was going from getting utterly devastated by Vegeta as his Ascended or his Grade 2 Super Saiyan, to being able to easily take him on, to where Vegeta goes and he attacks him at full power, hits him with this kick, and it does literally nothing to Cell. Yeah, he's just laughing it off, as you could see. He even seems to have that classic Android 18 smile, that nefarious smile on his face. So as a result, you have to wonder, is it possible that aside from just going through the metamorphosis into his most powerful form, Cell actually gained a gigantic amount of power, more so than 17, from Android 18? That's the real reason why she was suppressed. He even was able to take on the ultimate attack from Vegeta at the time of the Final Flash, which sure, it hurts him, but then he is able to regenerate that, saying that he has Piccolo cells within him, and then knock Vegeta out cold. So as a result, that's definitely another argument to take into account, just how powerful Cell became after he absorbed 18. And you kind of have to wonder, if he absorbed 18 first, maybe he would have been even more powerful than Vegeta when they were fighting, if that's really the case, or maybe at least would have fared a little bit better. So did Android 18 have greater potential than Android 17 when she was originally upgraded by Dr. Gero to make her the cyborg that she is? Well, it's definitely possible based upon some of the little evidence that we're given, the context clues perhaps. It's entirely possible that she had the same amount of power as him, or she might have just been naturally weaker. But again, they do make the note, they do have Toriyama writing right there that she was suppressed, whereas the others were not. Additionally, just look at what 17 accomplished in Dragon Ball Super and how powerful he became in the Tournament of Power and everything that we'd seen around that time. And just imagine if 18 wasn't suppressed, how powerful she would have become. Because she's still going and fighting against really powerful opponents that would probably solo most of the characters in Dragon Ball Z in the Tournament of Power, such as those that we see her fighting against, such as, for example, a character like Ribrianne in her kaiju form, when we saw Ribrianne in a lower form, was fighting against Super Saiyan Vegeta, who at this point his base is way above even Super Saiyan God from Battle of Gods. We all know how Dragon Ball Super scaling just goes insane and up and up and up when it comes to that stuff, especially in the Tournament of Power. So it's entirely possible that she would have been that much greater, that much more powerful, and even put 17's boost over the time when he was training on an island, potentially with Cell Jr.'s. I don't even count that mini arc or that mini chapter that Toyotaro wrote because it helps me sleep better at night. But what do you guys think? Do you think that was the case? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.